My name is Josh, and this is Scattercraft. I love miniature houses and inns, and I know my rogue player loves jumping off on unsuspecting enemies. So I decided it was time to add another large build to my collection. Let me show you how I did it. Okay, so I need to come up with a layout, and I'm kind of thinking about using a square here. It'd be kind of a nice guide. I kind of want to do an L-shaped building, so I'll kind of follow along with it here, and it'll give me a good easy shape to use. So I usually like my buildings to be 2.5 inches per floor. So since I'm thinking about making this 2-story and then the roof, I'm going to make it 5 inches wide here. I measured out all the other dimensions. Go ahead and get this pane off of here. Okay, and then I got a couple even pieces here, and I can just use them as templates. And it just makes cutting them out real easy. You just follow the guidelines, and you'll get exact perfect pieces. At least perfect enough for this use. Go ahead and make a base here for it. That'll just make it real easy. I'll get my L-shaped building layout here. This isn't necessary, but it'll make it really easy to line everything up and glue it on there. The thing with foam core is the paper gives it a lot of strength, so if I take the paper off, it'll actually lose a lot of that stability and become really flexible. I didn't remove it for any reason here except to show you guys, but it's really easy to remove and it can be great for making outsides, but for my use, I'm just going to use the solid sides because it makes it a lot stronger. And while that glue dries, I'm going to go ahead and use the square here to make sure this is a perfect 90 degrees. It'll just make the building a lot easier. And just add all the other sides the same way. I left quite a bit of overhang, but that just makes it real easy later. I just cut it right off with a knife and it'll be perfect. I thought the front looked a little boring, so I decided to make a little balcony to vary it up. And oh, a little extra glue there. It's no problem. Just wipe it off before it dries. Here I'm laying out the roof and I'm using this 45-degree line on my cutting mat to get a good measure. I just cut it both ways with it and it gives me a perfect 45-degree pitch. And you can use different pitches depending on what you're building. But I thought 45 would be good for this one. So some of these didn't look strong enough with just the 2 points of contact. So I added a couple little pieces of support, just cut off trim pieces. Just glued them inside because you'll never see them and they'll add a lot of strength. The bigger roof was leaning a little bit, so I added a little shim in there to add a little bit of strength and also to widen the top so it would be perfectly square. One more sticker to remove as well. 45-degree angle on this piece so that it would line up nicely on the roof with the other side. Then I added in the soffit pieces and put on the roof. And that finished everything out. So we have a nice shell of a house. So to make the wood paneling and trim pieces that I'd like to use, I go ahead and use a brush here and cut lines into it to make it into a very nice wood grain and cut it up on my Proxxon. You don't have to use the Proxxon. You can do this all with a knife, and I did it with a knife for a long time. I just made a whole bunch of these, so I had a bunch of extras. For the roof, I use these little, I don't know what they are. They're almost like coffee stirrers, but they have a round end. I thought they'd make a good template for the roof. So I'm going to cut that out on the Proxxon as well. tack glued it down and then ran it through the Proxon here, each individual piece just following the line. And it worked okay. It's just it came out with a few pieces that were a little misshapen. I don't know if I'll use this method again, but I thought I'd try something different that I've never done before. It's very satisfying to pull these pieces off at the end. Then just pop it loose from the glue, and then trim it down to size, and add the texture with the brush. Then I cut the shingles down about as thin as I can, and then repeat till I have a ton of them. So I'm lining out all the trim. It's really easy. You can just glue it right on without having the lines cut or anything. Once you lay it on there, you can cut the lines afterwards and it just pops right into place, and that makes it real easy, no measurement needed. Some great shots of my bathrobe. And I added a nice little bevel at the end here. Give it a varied look. I want to make sure the corners cover each other really well, so I lay it out ahead of time before I glue it down. I thought it'd be interesting to vary up the gable, so I went ahead and curved these trim pieces, and I thought they looked pretty nice. Added wood planking to the balcony. I like to do my doors 1 inch by 1.5 inch. It seems to fit really well with the mini sizes. I decided to do something different with the stonework, and I decided I was going to draw it out on a piece of foam and then cut it thin on the Proxon and glue it on. Something I'd never tried, and I don't know if I'll do it again, but and I just trimmed the stonework in and it looked great. And all the stonework finished. So I need to make a rail for the balcony, so I measured it with my little mini Philaster Fisk here. Then I went ahead and cut out a little pattern that I thought looked nice and cleaned it up with the brush. I use this grating to make a bunch of windows. Really cheap stuff you can get from Walmart or somewhere like that. Painted yellow to make it easier on myself later so that there would be some kind of light coming out through the windows, and I wouldn't have to try to paint between all the grating. I finished everything inside the balcony before I put the rail on it so that I wouldn't have to reach around it. And then Philaster Fisk for scale. The paneling was easy. I just cut a little bit thinner pieces on the Proxon and then just cut them out to fit each space all the way around the building. Don't worry too much about the small little gaps because you can just fill them with foam, and when you paint them it'll still look great and you won't even be able to tell there was a hole there. Shingles were also very easy. Just lay a bead of glue, line them up, cut them off, and then repeat the process all the way up. You can lay out some guidelines. I did that for the video, but I wouldn't do that normally. It's pretty easy to just gauge and make sure you're doing it right. And if you get off a little bit, you just adjust one side until it's right. And here it is with the finished shingles. Looks great. I use this piece for the ridgeline shingles, and that just makes it real easy to tidy it up at the top. I usually wait to do my chimney until I'm completely done with the building before I paint, so that I know exactly where it's going to be and how it's going to look, and I know it'll fit really tight once I cut it in. I thought here looked like a nice spot for it. So I drew on all my bricks. Then laid out a guideline and started cutting. I'm always a little anxious to cut into my project like this, but it has to be done. And then I just finish up the bricks on the chimney. And I take a ball of foil and roll it over all the brick surfaces to give them a nice stone look. Now one of my favorite parts is when I get to Mod Podge it. It really brings the project to life. This is also going to add a lot of strength to the foam. And look at that, all coming together. And I'm going to use this apple barrel pewter gray. And I'm going to use that for all the stonework to just base it out. I don't really care if I'm getting paint all over at this point. I'm just blocking everything out. Getting all the base colors down. I wanted my building to be red, so I used this apple barrel chocolate bar is what this color is called. And it's a nice dark reddish brown. I wanted the doors to stand out a bit as well, so I made them a slightly brighter red. I use this antique copper color from Folk Art, nice metallic, to paint up these little rings I got and use them as door handles. These can be found in the jewelry section. I used burnt umber on the shingles. And then I dry brushed it with a light mocha. I use an even lighter gray to dry brush the stones. I decided I liked black for the trim, so I cleaned it up here real quick. And that is looking a lot better once I get it all cleaned up. I used a silvery looking metallic for the door pieces. And glued on the handles as well with super glue. And now for the Liquid Talent Black Wash. This is just heavily watered down black paint with a little bit of dish soap in it to help it flow. Fills all the nooks and crannies, adds nice shading. I wanted some ivy running up the side of the building, so I went ahead and lined out the ivy with some Elmer's glue and covered it with flocking. And just shook it off, and really easy vines. And here it is. I had a really awesome time putting this together. This Red Manor took me several days to finish, but in the end, it was worth it. This is going to look great on the table in play. I tried a few new things in this project, and I think they've turned out pretty well. I'm really happy with the way that the timbers turned out on the gabled ends. The balcony, I think, was a great touch that really sets off this piece. I really wanted to show with this project that it's not really that hard, and it's really great to try something new. I want to put out regular videos to help inspire you and show you that you can do this too. So please subscribe and turn on the notifications so you know when I put out a new video. I promise they will be great. I am a new channel and I really want to inspire people to get out there and try something new. Also, please comment on anything you learned, anything that you think I can do better with the video quality, with the audio quality, or any kind of recommendations on future builds. I will definitely be reading them and I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.